AM 1170, The Answer.
Hey, this is Stephen Wener of EXP Whissel Realty. We're back.
Oops.
And we've got some sort of Ohio bucket. It must be Ohio State.
Well, I've heard that song a few times.
It must be their music. This is definitely not O Canada.
Love it. Who did that?
And I'm the Canadian.
That's awesome.
So, there was a little bit of punching and kicking and shoving going on between football over here in the break. But now that we're back, we are going to get started with Mr. J. Adkins. How are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Well, this particular gentleman is, call him exceptional in the insurance world because of everything he brings to the commercial platform for businesses out there. And he had recently started up a newer company, Insurance Solutions Pacific Coast, but you've got a 20-year history with farmers. You were an estate planning attorney beforehand. You're always a top producer at everything you do. Now you can leave. No, I'm just kidding. But
that is going to cost me way more than $100 I gave you.
Exactly. But there's a lot I want to touch on. But being a recovering attorney, as you like to describe it, how did you find your way from being an estate planning attorney, helping people protect their future, their assets, wealth preservation, things like that, into the commercial world for insurance?
It's a great story. I was referring out the funding mechanisms to an insurance agent.
What does that mean, the funding mechanisms?
Well, you're funding, I'm doing ILETs, irrevocable trust or life trust, and you got to fund those, usually with life insurance of some type. And the insurance agent, this has been a great story 20 years ago, goes and takes me out to dinner, and we get a little intoxicated and tells me what he made. I said, what?
Intoxicated with love, you mean?
Oh, intoxicated with love. Oh, my goodness. And that started my epiphany that residual power of income is the most incredible thing ever. If you're a people person, if you love people, and you work hard, good attitude, effort, it's a pathway forward. And my family at the time and my friends at the time thought I was insane. But 20 years later, best decision ever.
Well, you shared the story with me about the law firm that you worked with, and it was incredibly difficult to get accepted to work there.
Yeah.
And you did. So share that story, because for you to make that kind of a leap will have our listeners understand why people thought you were crazy.
Yeah, it was, you work toward a dream, I guess, that you think is going to be your pathway. And, it happened, and it was, just like I said, I don't know another word to describe it. It was an epiphany. And, so I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, you saw somebody else blazing the way, and you thought, okay, this is a direction I'd like to take, because with the residual income, but you got into the commercial world. So many people that I talk to, it's auto, all of these different things, house.
Sure.
What made you go into the commercial world?
By happenstance, I think in the beginning, because, I didn't know anything about insurance. And of course, that's the easy pathway is home and autos, and sold a lot of those the first year, and realized that the business environment was kind of my forte, my wheelhouse, dealing with a business owner. And there's a heck of a lot more residual income, so to speak, in that. And it's always something that's fulfilling to be able to protect a business owner's assets, most of the time for something that he's worked for all his life. And you do that with, knowledge first of understanding what the deficiencies might be in his policy, pointing those out, never selling. I never sell to a business owner.
So you're talking about being value proposition based is what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't use those, selling terms like you do. You're the sales guy.
Wow. Do we have something for that? Do we have something for that?
Shots fired.
I know. That was something off the bow of David's ship.
Yeah. Love you.
Wow.
Love you.
Okay, I'll take the heat.
I'm gonna be repaid, I'm sure, very shortly.
He's controlling our mics. You know that.
But no, that's my whole deal. Don't sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, educate your client on what he's buying, what he's not buying, what the exposures are that he chooses not to pay for that are there, and that's what I do.
Well, the other thing that we didn't touch on from a financial planning background, you've also got different licenses as well, or like Series 7, why don't you also tell people not just being an attorney, but some of the financial background you have, so that in the commercial world you can really look at a business?
Well, and that goes hand in foot, certainly with the business owner, and the succession planning is the best word for it. You have partners, and you look at the business owner and say, do you have succession planning in place? A lot of them look at you and say, what? Well, okay, so you have a partner, and the other partner dies. What happens to your business that you worked 20 years to build? That's succession planning. And love that aspect of it as well, financial planning, all that. Yeah, absolutely.
So in the sense of when you feel like you're being vetted against some competition, let's just say, that even if there's, because you have a great story for someone that you converted, you took an in-depth look at what they already had with a commercial insurance agent that they've been with for years and years and years. And we all understand, being in the relationship business, it's hard to break great relationships.
Sure.
But you demonstrated so much value to a certain person that's of billionaire status, and then took over their insurance because you did such an in-depth dive. So for the listeners out here that really do have, Steve, of course, that do have a commercial agent, why should they talk to you? And I always call it the Pepsi taste test. When someone tells me they have a real estate agent, I go, that's perfectly fine. You're looking to sell and buy. That's a 7+ figure transaction, correct? They're like, I go, why wouldn't you want to investigate a little deeper for 15, 20, 30 minutes to see if you've got it covered?
Sure.
So how are you going about that? And why should our listeners also contact you just to see where they're at so you can help compare?
It's interesting, especially in California, coming from, I was in Oklahoma for 15 years in the business.
I doubt that. Buckeyes, I doubt it.
I know how I got there. I have no idea. But it's very interesting, the dichotomy of the business environment compared to a good business environment and a bad business environment. It was starkly apparent when I got here. Didn't quite understand it. So to answer your question, I think a lot of times business owners, because of this business environment, insurance is kind of the last thing on the totem pole. They are being pulled 1,000 different directions, trying to just survive in this environment, and they just kind of blow me off. And I always say, you know what, when's the last time somebody looked and evaluated your insurance? I'm going to do it free. I'm going to look, I'm going to give you a straight up, ethical, honest answer as to what you have, what you don't have, what you're paying for. And if that helps you, and I'm able to provide those educational summary, then what's the harm?
Right.
So that's my approach.
And for the listeners basically on air right now, listening to what you're going to look at, can you tell them, what are you looking at? Are you just looking at policies? Are you also looking at succession planning? How do you do it differently that they may never have experienced before? Because you're going to take them down a different path.
Yeah, I definitely, add some different dimensions to what I'm able to provide to them. But it's always the door opener, I guess, in the initial conversations about the business insurance or the workers' comp. And then we, get into later, after that's in place, succession planning and financial planning.
And you mentioned that you'll just help people along the way with that because of your legal background, right? So he for those of you that can't see, he's waving his Ohio State coffee mug at me and everybody else in the room. So this is
just the most disgusting thing. Just absolutely.
So back to insurance, right? But what is the way you typically approach? Yes, you're going to look at some of the basic things, but what's your methodology? How deep do you dive into it? Because you're going to get into estate and succession planning, but what is the experience with you versus how they're typically being treated or looked at or talked to?
That's a simple answer. I'm a relationship guy, and I can't say it on the air, but I give a darn. I answer the phone. I answer the questions. I give a darn. Now that sounds simplistic, but it's amazing to me, the people out there in my industry that don't, but I care. I care at a level that you've worked 20 years to build this business.
Right.
I'm going to shoot you straight. Integrity is not what you do in front of people; it's what you do behind when nobody's watching. So, it's a different approach, I think. But I'm about caring about the business owner, his family, his succession. I was trying to think of the other word, but I'm going to screw up another quote, aren't I? So I'm not going to go there. So anyways, but yeah, you just give a darn. You give a darn.
Yeah. And the way I built my real estate practice was I always told people that I'm going to look at this as if I was buying the house or selling the house for myself.
There it is.
Yep.
You care.
You do. And in the end, people know that.
Absolutely.
And in the real estate world,
It has to be real. It has to be real.
It does.
Yep.
How
How do you get away with that then?
For other people?
He didn't quite catch that one.
No.
That was
Not me.
two now.
It's just me.
I'm owed two.
Yeah. I don't know. Who is this guy? But no, when you're in this business and you do give a darn, as Jay's putting it, and people do notice, these guys are just cracking up in the background. And we have 1 minute before commercial, and David's crying. You can't even hear him.
This is just crazy.
We have digressed.
I don't know if I missed a Buckeye statement or not.
Put Buckeye song on, Matt,
Right?
please.
I don't care if we're on air or not. We're all going tailgating after this. That's all I care about.
Well, I think we've got about 20 seconds before we go to commercial, and I'm going to lose these guys into football. So we're going to be right back with Mr. David Oates, and we're going to talk about Stalwart Communications. I'm Stephen Wener of EXP, Whissel Realty on 1170 AM, The Answer.